Isaiah chapter 6. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphims. Each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly. And one cried unto another, saying, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Then said I, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar. And he laid it upon my mouth, and said, Lo, this hath touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin is purged. Also I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then said I, Here am I, send me. And he said, Go, and tell this people, Hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, but perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert and be healed. Then said I, Lord, how long? And he answered, Until the cities be wasted without inhabitants, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate. And the Lord hath removed men far away, and there be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. But yet it shall be a tenth, and it shall return, and shall be eaten as a teal tree, and an oak tree, whose substance is in them when they cast their leaves. So the holy seed shall be the substance thereof.
See how everything goes. I was reading a couple of books actually, one on an up-to-date one in China, but one going back to former days in America. One brother there preached 5 sermons in one day. 5 sermons. 2 of those sermons 3 hours long. And the congregation just wouldn't let him go. And we've got something else to say to us. Will you please tell us about this good news? And in China, very similar things. You know, they went through the whole history of the church in this one province. An excellent book that I managed to get hold of, quite accidentally really. But outstanding, the hunger that they have for the Word of God. They love the Lord, but they can be so ignorant of Him. And yet, know Him so well, so hungry. So I thought we'd look at this subject of gleaning through Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel. They're difficult books, and to take them as a study, I think they would be too big for me to take as a study. I don't think I've got the mindset to go through each of those books. But I thought we could do little gleanings of different things, maybe chapters we're familiar with, and some of the experiences they went through. So we did this morning some of the similarities between the 3 boys or the 3 men, and how they complemented each other, their messages, their lifestyle, and even their marriage relationship, or lack of a marriage relationship, seemed to be signs to the people around them. They were so innovative. I mentioned this morning, if Isaiah was with us today, I don't know if we could cope with him. I really don't know if we could. What would you do if Jeremiah came with a yoke on his shoulders to say that, you know, that this weight is going to be on you? I remember Andy Watkins telling me that he preached from a woman's handbag. He borrowed Dana's handbag. I never told you about that. And he pulled out all the stuff that was in there. It was amazing what goes into a handbag, isn't it? The different things, all the things. Obviously, you check with her first to see what was in there, you know. But if I remember right, I got a sneaky feeling he pulled out half a house brick or something like that as well. Because we just carry things. She wasn't carrying that. He just built on it a little bit. But so innovative. What would you do? As I mentioned this morning, if I came in tonight now to preach and I sang you a sermon, I sang you a sermon. Because that's what he does in chapter 5. He sings a sermon to them. He sings a parable to them. And there's responses to what he says to them. He tells them of a landowner who purchased some land and worked the land to make it a vineyard. And that vineyard became something that was of a great disappointment to the landowner. And so he said at the very end of that particular part of the sermon that he was preaching, he said there was nothing, there was no harvest there. And he asked this question, what more could have been done? And so the response of the people, when they obviously begins to, it doesn't give us a verbal response, but it's quite obvious. It's exactly what Jesus would do, right? He would say a parable, and he would provoke a response. And so they turned, and Isaiah turned to them and said, what more could have been done for my vineyard and for the harvest? And then he turns it on his head, because the people have agreed with him. You remember when Nathan went into David, and David was there, and he had just had this relationship with Bathsheba, Uriah's wife. And Nathan comes into the area where David was, and he turned and says to David, David, let me tell you a little story. There was a king, a mighty man, that came into the land, and he had thousands of sheep. And he decided not to touch his sheep in a celebration party. He decided to take one man's sheep. He had but one man or one sheep in all of his flock, so to speak. Just the one, and he took it. And David said to him, he didn't say I'll take his head off, but he went beyond the law. He said, I love him. The law said if you did that, there was a certain things you had to do. David went more than what the law said. He was so frustrated, so angry. And so Nathan has got him on his side. This is what I do. This is what ought to be done. And then he turned and said to him, but David, you're the man. You're the man that's done it. Imagine that happening to you. And so here Isaiah, in this innovative way, he breaks into song. He sings of a love relationship between a woman. I will sing of my beloved, he said. He's taken the woman's part. My beloved who purchased a vineyard and worked at it and built at it. But the vineyard, even though everything was done to it, it produced nothing. Nothing but wild grapes. And so, what more could be done? And nothing could be done as far as the Lord was concerned. The next chapter is built upon what we've just said. What more could be done? And so we're told in verse 1, chapter 6, in the year King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon the throne, high and lifted up, and the hem of his garment filled the temple. The train of his robe filled the temple. We'll have a little look at different things. In the year Uzziah died, was it a sad year then? Or was there a sense of relief that he got? I mentioned this morning that he was in his early days, he was a godly man. Israel was very prosperous under his ministry, and he knew some great, great successes. And we find with Uzziah that he got a little bit too above himself. He thought a little bit too much of himself. And he thought, well, I'll go into the temple, and I'll offer some offerings. You remember Saul did the same thing, didn't he? Very impatient, wouldn't wait for Samuel. I'll offer it then. And we're told that as he went into the temple to offer before the Lord, the priest stopped him and said to him, you can't do these things. But he wasn't going to listen. And it says, and God struck him with leprosy. Now why I say whilst you will normally get people saying he was a good man and Isaiah was mourning his death, I have little doubt that he was mourning his death. But I'm not convinced that it's merely sadness that is here. There could be a sense of relief that's here. You see, people can hold influence over others. It can affect others. And so whether it be sorrow or be it relief, we find with Isaiah, as he records this time when God is speaking to him and appearing to him, we find that it's either a day, a year of sadness, which I doubt very much that it wasn't a day. It was a day of sadness. I don't doubt that it was a day of sadness. Pardon my words there. But I have wondered also, with that sadness, was there a sense of relief? Because we're told that when his son Jotham did and took over the reins from his father, we're told that Jotham had this testimony. He did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, but not like his father, he did not enter into the temple. And whilst he had that good testimony, this is what the writer of Chronicles then says. And yet the people did more wickedly. There was a disillusionment now in the connection between those that were leading the nation and those that were in the nation. And so I do wonder if there's a sense of relief amidst the sorrow and the tears that may have been shed. Because we're told that Uzziah died a leper. He knew no change of heart. He knew no change of heart. Sometimes we think, well, we'll be better tomorrow. Will we? Today is the day of salvation. And it's important that we get it right today. So we find here, in the year King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne. You see, whether it be a sense of relief or whether it be a great sense of sorrow and sadness, the Lord is still on the throne. It hasn't changed. The king might be a leper. The testimony of his son might not be strong enough and powerful enough to influence the congregation, but the Lord is still on the throne. After the epoch of the 7 letters to the churches in the book of Revelation, and the disarray that we find, especially on the last church, the last letter to the Laodiceans, that had locked Christ out, that he's looking to get back in again. You remember the threat to the first letter, to the first church that was sent? The threat was this: if you don't repent, I'll remove your candlestick. I won't walk amongst you. The Laodiceans had turned it on its head and said, we don't want you to walk amongst us. And so they locked him out. And so after the incredible sense of disappointment, after all the labor that would have been done in those Asian churches, we find that John is told in chapter 4 to go up into heaven and view what's up there, because he was going to be shown things that were going to be from now on. And he said, I went up and I looked, and behold, I saw the throne set in heaven. I saw the throne set in heaven. You see, God is still on the throne. Even when Ezekiel sees this wonderful picture of glory in his first chapter, in his vision, we find there Ezekiel. He finds there God on the throne. But if you notice it, it's not a throne that's set. It's a throne that's portable. Because Israel, his people, were in another land. What's he saying to them then? In simple terms, wherever you are, I can be there. That's what he's saying in Ezekiel. Wherever you are, whatever mess you're in, I can be there. But here, in the temple, we find Isaiah saw a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. We told later on that the temple was filled with smoke. So we understand what's going on there. This hem, this train of this robe, is a picture of an Eastern king who would have a tremendous robe that would follow behind. Over recent days, when it for Harry and Meghan's wedding, they've been talking about Princess Diana's dress when she got out of the car, and the huge train that followed in behind. And she looked an absolute mess in the front one. It was all creased. Remember, it all creased up. They'd used probably the wrong material. Should have stuck with something nice and cozy and cheap. But his train filled the temple, the hem of his robe. There wasn't a room there where the glory of God was not in. The treasury room. The temple had a wooden room. It also had a room where the fire was kept, that would have been transferred down through the generations. They kept the flame burning just in case the one on the altar went out. There was a wooden room, so they had plenty of wood. There was a treasury room. There were changing rooms. There wasn't a corner, a hallway, an area in that precinct where the glory of God was not at. It filled the whole house. It filled the whole house. When Moses built his tabernacle, the glory of God filled it. When Solomon built his temple, the glory of God filled it. When Ezekiel saw the temple constructed at the end of his book, we're told that the glory of God filled it. When John saw a temple there in the heavens, we're told that the glory of God filled it. It's a marvelous thing, you know, that God's intention for each and every one of us is for his glory to dwell within us, or an area to lack from the glory of God. Not an area to remain untouched. He's to challenge every area and to see as to whether or not there is a yielding to his authority. Have you seen that little advert? I think it's for the Audi car, I think it is, and he got this young little kid, this little goat with horns, and he bullies everyone. And then this Audi Quattro comes down the road, and he stands against it. And the Quattro driver just revs it up just a little touch, and it backs off. And it backs off. The glory of God challenges, and it watches for the response to see whether or not there is a yielding or whether there is a brazenness that holds itself against it. And so we find here that Isaiah saw his glory. That's what John's Gospel tells us. This Isaiah said when he saw his glory. Whose glory? According to John, it's the glory of Jesus Christ. So we go on from here. Verse 5, what's the effect that it has? Isaiah says this, woe is me, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell amongst the people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. It seems hard to believe, but he is convinced of himself that he has said things that he ought not to have said. Woe is me, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell amongst the people of unclean lips. He had been saying things that he ought not to have said. And we find when men and women and children come into the presence of God, so very often we find them, they become very conscious of their own sinfulness. When God came down into the garden, in that day when he would visit Adam and Eve, we are told this, that Adam and Eve hid themselves. They hid themselves from the presence of God. We find on countless occasions when the presence of God comes down, men, women, and children become very, very conscious of their lack. And so we find here with Isaiah, he's found to be a man of unclean lips, and a people of unclean lips, for his eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. He become conscious. When Peter saw him on that day, when he was invited out by the Lord and said, Peter, launch out into the deep. And he went out. And we're told there in that instance that Jesus asked him to cast the net. He said, I've been fishing all night. But cast the net. At your word, Lord, I'll do it. And he cast the net through into the sea. There would he been fishing all night, and suddenly the net is bursting at the seams with the weight of the catch of fish. Listen to what Peter says. Depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man. See, he becomes very conscious of his sinfulness. Very conscious of it. We get a little prickly sometimes when we feel that we're not so sinful. But in the presence of God, we become very conscious of our sinfulness and of our lack in spiritual matters. And so he says, woe is me, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell amongst the people of unclean lips, for mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Verse 6 says, you see, there's no despair with God. There's no despair. No matter how low you might feel that you are. This is what it says. That a live coal was taken from the altar, and it was taken and touched my mouth and said, not the coal now, the seraphim that carried it. The seraphim turned and said, this has touched your lips. Your iniquity is taken away, and your sin is purged. You see, in that episode that I just mentioned with Peter now, Peter is saying, Lord, depart from me, for I am a sinful man. And he falls at his knees. Jesus turned and said to him, when he's so conscious of his own weakness, Jesus turns and says to him, from now on, Peter, you're going to catch men. And that's the way God works, see. Sometimes he takes us to that point of utter and complete helplessness. When we feel that we've got no strength, we've got no answer, we've got no way around these situations, he waits sometimes, just for that moment where we are so conscious of our own weakness, of our own sinfulness, of our own lack, whether in whatever area it's talking of, and at that moment you feel that you're at breaking point, he turns and he says, but Peter, you're now going to catch men, and you'll be an expert in it. And so we find here, he speaks to John, and or to Isaiah, and he says, your iniquity is taken away, and your sin is purged. He's been set free. I spoke to someone last week, or 3 weeks ago now, and they were telling me, no connection with this church at all, telling me about their younger days and the difficulties that they went through, the abuse and everything else that went on. And I was amazed by the way that God undertook for them when they came to Christ. The way he was able, even amidst all the memory of it all, amidst it all, this individual was set free. Isn't it marvelous what God can do? Set free. Even the memory. No doubt it still hurts at times, but even the memory doesn't taunt and vaunt in a way that it could so easily dominate the whole life, to make it so bitter, so unmovable, so fixed. And yet we find here that God, he takes away his iniquity. Oh, I wish I never said that. Have you ever thought that? I've said to you before, walking down Bryn Hyfryd, just by the little bungalow, just before the little tunnel there, and I said to you, before we were converted, I took the Lord's name in vain. I can still hear my voice now. Oh, I wish I never said it. Still haunts me now. You say, well, you're forgiven. I know I'm forgiven. But I can still hear it. I can still see my mother's tears when I stole up money from a friend of mine. I still see my mother's tears. They're still there for me. I only got to close my eyes. I can still see it. I can still remember a face that my mate pulled when we were in trouble with the deputy headmaster. And he pulled his face, and it was perfect timing. As he pulled the face, the deputy headmaster came out and looked at him as he was pulling his face. We laughed and laughed and laughed when we shouldn't have laughed. It was one of those moments. I can still see it. I can still hear it. Here, we find that God, is able to take these things away. Take them away. Verse 8 tells us this, I heard him speaking to me. Whom shall I send? Who will go for us? Then said I, here am I, send me. The marvelous thing, and the challenge of God comes and says, who will go for us? He's left it open-ended. He hasn't said to him, will you do it? He said, who will go for us? It's an open-ended question. In sales talk, you have an open question and a closed question. You always try to get them towards the closed question because you want to get a sale. You then take them down the road of an open question. Who will go for us? But the Lord leaves it open. And he says, who will go for us? Here am I, Lord. Send me. If he was to challenge you today, who will go for us? What would you do? Would you wait for someone else? Would you think, well, he can't be speaking to me? Surely there are better people than me. But you know, the challenge goes out. Week in, week out, day by day. The challenge of the Holy Spirit is this. Who will go for us? We find with Isaiah on a number of occasions that God is looking. He's looking for a man. He's looking for an intercessor. He's looking for a servant. He's looking for someone to go here. Isaiah tells us some peculiar things about the Lord. Do you know God whistles? That's what Isaiah says. He whistles. It's an unusual thing. But that's what Isaiah says. The Lord whistled to the nations to call them, beckon them to come into the land of Israel and Judah. Then said I, here am I, Lord, send me. Then he said to me, go to this people. And so the people that he was going to be sent to were people that he was acquainted with. People that knew him and he knew them. People that spoke the same language, that had the same culture, that knew the history of all the different things. These are the people you're going to go to, Isaiah. But listen now, this is what I want you to understand. They won't receive you. They won't perceive you, and they won't believe you. That's the three things he tells them. And so Isaiah turns and says to him, well, how long, Lord? How long? How long is this going to last for? They won't receive me, they won't perceive me, they won't believe me, they won't take on board what I'm trying to say. How long will this go? Surely just a few days. No. Till there's nothing left. Till there's nothing left. The thing that stands out with these prophets, the three of them, Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel, the thing that stands out is their endurance. That doesn't mean that they didn't have difficult days. Isaiah said, Lord, you're a God that hides yourself. Jeremiah says, you deceived me, Lord. That's the word he uses. You deceived me, Lord. I didn't realize it was good. That doesn't mean they didn't have difficult days, but they stayed loyal. They endured to the end. How long? How long, Lord? For 60 years he was right through to the end of his life. And that ministry was to continue for a number of other years till there was nothing left. Till the cities were desolate. Till the valleys were empty. Till the roads had no one walking upon them anymore. He said, you preach until there is nothing left. You keep on preaching even if they turn away from you. You keep on preaching and telling them the words that I'm telling you. But he said, at the end, even though there'll be nothing, there will be a stump. And out of that stump will come a shoot and a seed that will last forever. We had our hopes and our dreams of what perhaps God would do with our lives. Isaiah was told nigh on from the outset. This is not the beginning of his ministry, it seems. Chapters 1 to 5 was prior to this. But from the outset of this new prophetic ministry, he was conscious of this, that he would see little success. And yet he remained faithful. That's not an excuse for an empty church. But he remained faithful, loyal. endured to the end. For over 60 years, he stayed true to the call of God. What a wonderful vision this can be, that stays in your heart for nigh on 60 years. It's so real to him that he'd seen the Christ and heard the call of God. If you heard that prompting, if you felt that challenge, is there within your heart a desire to draw near and to anchor yourself at this wonderful throne and there be a servant to the end of your days?